right there, right at the very, very beginning, after it says that he creates us, it says this, and God blessed them. That is the first thing that is said of what God does towards humanity, male and female, after his image. God blessed them. Think back with me to the very first chapter of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible. God speaks and he creates the world, right? He speaks the world into being. He places it where it wants to go, where he wants it to go. He creates light, right? He places it on the fourth day into its place. He does all this great work of creation, and at the height of his creation, at the very end of his creation, he creates us, humankind. It says male and female. He creates us in his image, male and female. And what he does right there, right at the very, very beginning, after it says that he creates us, it says this, and God blessed them. That is the first thing that is said of what God does towards humanity, male and female, after his image. God blessed them. Now, actually, this is reiterated for us. If you kept reading in Genesis chapter 5, there's the genealogy of Adam. One of the reasons, probably you know this, Genesis is the book of beginnings. Genealogy is this line of beginnings and what happens. And so when you look at chapter 5, when it gives the genealogy of Adam, it actually reiterates it for us. It wants you to hear this truth, that when God created them, the first thing he did was bless them. This is what it says. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them. And he blessed them. Again, first thing, this is what you were made for, the blessing of God. Interestingly, actually, if you keep going, if you follow these next chapters, in Genesis, right after the flood in Genesis chapter 9, we read this. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Echoing what was said again in Genesis chapter 1, this sort of new creation that's taking place. And again, actually, if you continue to read the story, what you do is you come upon this passage from Genesis chapter 12 that Chuck read for us. Abram is called out from Ur of the Chaldeans. And when he is called out, and when he's called to God, God says, I'm blessing you, and through you, I am blessing all the nations of the earth. Which is to say, my intent for the world is my good favor towards them. I am blessing you because you were made for this. This is what you deeply long for, the very blessing of God. Now, okay, so I want you to hold that, right? This reiteration of God's blessing and the fact that that is the very first thing he does. And that is his intent for his creation. And then I want you to think with me of those first few chapters of Genesis. Because once we do that, what we find is that we have stories of harm, stories of pride, stories of taking, largely stories of living out of fear, and the belief in some way that God's provision for us is not enough, that his orchestrating of his world is not enough, that his blessing for us is insufficient. So if you think back of those first chapters of Genesis, which are often called proto-history, which doesn't mean like it's not history, it's just pre-recorded history in a lot of ways, but they're a little bit distinct from 12 on in the Bible. And what we find in just those few chapters is the outworking of the curse, not the blessing, but the curse, right? Cain and Abel, the killing of a brother, wickedness that spreads all across the earth before the flood, the Tower of Babel where humankind says, you know what, we don't need God. We can make ourselves like God. And so it's in the middle of these moments where fear seems to overtake the world. I need to take control into my own hands. I need to be God. I need to take the life of another so that I can control the situation here. That God is continually calling them back, saying, no, what you need to hear more than anything is my good favor upon you. Genesis 1 and Genesis 5, Genesis 9, Genesis 12, and frankly, it just keeps going.